Welcome, everybody. We have got a fantastic session for you today with the one and only Adriana McDermott, who I always love getting to learn from. She has got so much great information for you today, and we also have a pretty killer worksheet for you to take and go implement after this. So, Adriana, tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can take it away.
Yes, I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen just so cool. I'm assuming everybody can see it. I feel like that's what we always ask. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah,
Okay,
you're
cool.
good.
So I am Adriana and I own a marketing agency for wedding pros. And so I was so excited when he wanted me to come on and talk about converting leads, especially with client experience marketing, because as an agency, we look at marketing from a data point, but also it is so intertwined with the actual experience that our couples are going through working with us. And as we know, a happy couple leads to a great referral, which can lead to booking sales. And there really is this cool circle because I think sometimes we think of sales and marketing as these very two completely different avenues when they're actually pretty darn entwined. So today, that is what we're going to be talking about. And we're going to be breaking it into kind of this little circle because, again, it is a full journey. We're going to be starting with each phase of how we work with our couples and how that can all lead into actually converting those inquiries we get. So, like I said, I'm Adriana. I am a former wedding planner, bridal uh, boutique owner and florist. I've been in the industry since 2009. And a lot of stuff I have learned has literally just been from trial and error because marketing really is about just trying something, seeing if it works, and testing the data. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I do have the workbook. I know we'll have a link to it. If you're a QR code person, feel free. If not, we have the link as well. But the biggest point that we're going to start with is that your marketing, your sales, and your client experience are going to start months before your client ever reaches out. This is especially true. We are in the age of technology, and as we know, they are looking at us online. So, what this means is this is going to start when they land on your social media, they land on your blog, they land on your website. That's when your process actually starts. And one of the things we're realizing is that younger generations, like our Gen Z that everybody's talking about right now, they're not just booking from these pretty pictures. They're truly booking from all of these different touch points and all of these experiences that they're expecting for you to be delivering to them already. So that's why we talk so much about connection marketing, because think about it when it comes to that sales strategy. Hopping on a call with someone that is cold, doesn't really know much about you, is hard, right? It's hard to build that trust in a single moment. So if we focus on having our touch points do the selling for us and converting those leads, so that way when they're in your inbox, they're super hot, they're very excited to talk to you, that's going to make this so much easier. So, what is your client experience? Your client experience, a lot of times when I talk to wedding pros, they're like, oh, it's my CRM system, it's Honeybook. And it's actually so much more. It's truly the feeling that they get before, during, and after event. And that's because there will be creeping for months. So we are seeing people online. So I'm in over 60 Facebook, Reddit, Discord, Substacks, you name it, I'm in it, and they look for a really long time. Like there are people in there who are like, I'm getting married in 2026 and I'm creeping on my photographers right now. So they are truly looking at it. And when they reach out to us, we only have that 30-day market, like little window to go ahead and get them to book. So that's where we're going to be doing all of these touch points. So I want you to take a minute after today's call and I want you to think about what was it like when they came across your online presence? Did it have your voice? Did you stand out? Or did they honestly kind of just forget that they were just on your website? Did they look at your events and see anything that was spectacular? Or did they hear of a statement that they really resonated with? Or did you answer a question that they've just been wanting an answer to? And they've been going on the knot and brides and style me pretty, and they just can't seem to get an answer, but you're the one that answered it for it. Are they inspired by your work? Are you quick to respond? Because as we know, even when we're working with clients, they might not be customers now, but they might be customers later. They might be at an event of yours and become a customer. So I love a good stat, as Heidi knows. So we're going to have a few stats throughout of this because I am a believer that data paints the picture for us. So step one is the discovery phase. So this is that creeping phase, right? This is the one we kind of touched on in the beginning. And it's because 77% of Gen Z couples prefer personalization, personalized experiences when it comes to planning and vendor selection. I want you to keep that in mind. It's also, and not just in planning, they don't just want cool weddings, they want cool vendor experiences. And 80% are more likely to buy from a brand that offers personalized recommendations and tailored offers. So it's really important for us to keep that in mind as we go through this first phase. So, social media, because we know we got to talk about social media because I know so many of you guys are asking questions on, okay, I got to be on social media. How do I actually get them to, I don't know, pay me money? So the first thing is you really want to be focusing on being authentic. So I just did a full presentation on like going through stats of Gen Z and their shopping habits. And I was talking to my husband who works at Snyder's Pretzels as their brand manager. So he's like really in tune with how people are buying 24/7, like millions of dollars of spend. And they want authentic things. Like even in a pretzel, they want the pretzel to be like a cool pretzel, right? So as a vendor, they are wanting to have someone they can trust and that is authentic. And the easiest way to create that trust is to showcase yourself. So make sure that your content is matching your business. For example, highlight things about you or your team. I know a lot of times we don't want to show pictures of us if we have a team. Well, then show off your team. Show those behind the scenes. Show the things that are going to make them go. You're not just the expert, but you're actually there to help guide them through that. If you have social causes that are really important to you, Gen Z wants to know. Like they want to know that you have the same causes in your mind as they do. And you don't want your voice to be inconsistent. One thing I have to note about social media is I see so many times where their Instagram sounds nothing like their website, which sounds nothing like their emails. And your couples will comment and post it on Reddit and say that they don't think you're real. Like they will legit screenshot this, post it online and say, is this vendor legit? Like that's the number one thing right now is this vendor legit? And it's just simply because like your voices just don't match. And it's such a tiny, tiny little thing. But if they don't trust you and your voices don't match, how do you expect them to then fork over $5,000? Like they're not going to do it. So it's important to really consider that because even regardless of price point. So I think a lot of times I work with a lot of clients who are trying to get into the higher luxury and they're like, "Oh, I have to be like super not authentic." But they actually want it just as much. Like just because they're spending more doesn't mean they're not into who you are as a person. I also want you to be consistent because a lot of times we let a lot of our platforms like Facebook or we make a new platform and we just ignore it. And the thing is, your couples are seeing that when they search for you. So if you Google your name right now, your Facebook might come above your website. If your Facebook looks like it hasn't been active in 5 years, you might look closed. And again, that's just creating a little friction point that they're thinking, oh, they kind of closed during the pandemic. So you have to also remember a lot of people got burned in the pandemic. We all have a friend who got married, who got burned. So if you look closed, why are they going to reach out to you? So even if it's just simply putting up something at the header saying like, come follow us on Instagram, just make sure that you're like consistent, especially if you want it to be a platform where people are reaching out to you. People aren't going to DM you if you're not active on the platform. So if we want the sales and the DMs, you have to post. And the biggest thing to keep in mind is that the goal of social media is brand awareness. The chances of someone being like, I will pay you $15,000 tomorrow from one post is pretty low. The goal and what we're using it for is to build that awareness because we want to engage with the audience. I see a lot of people, they outsource Instagram. It's great. Hire an Instagram manager, but make sure you're still on there. Make sure you still know what's happening. Make sure you're still in the DMs and make sure you're still communicating throughout it. So that way, you know that you're actually, pushing them to your website or pushing them to book a call with you. Your website, I know with ads, you need a good landing page. If we're just sending them to something that doesn't work, it's really bad. So this one is from, these are all within the last week. So how harshly should I judge a photographer by their website? I'm looking for a photographer for my wedding, and I'm honestly kind of shocked how many photographers are asking 5 to 7K have absolutely terrible websites. Honestly, reminds me of the old days of MySpace and GeoCity websites. I got my start building websites on MySpace and GeoCities, and the answer is yeah. So if this is such a really important touch point, if your website, it doesn't have to just be pretty, it has to actually convert. But I want you to really think about that when it comes to selling, because everything I do as a marketing agency is to get them onto your website. My Instagram strategy is your website. My blogging strategy is your website. You name it, it's your website. Like I don't have, like that is what I know converts. I know that's what works. So I want you to really consider, is my website giving GeoCity vibes, or is it giving I'm an expert, pay me vibes? I just loved this one because I was like, oh man, I loved MySpace. Don't judge me. So I have a much bigger list of things to look at on a website, so I won't go too deep into this for sake of time. But in the workbook, it's just things as simply as let them know who you are and what you do. So many people don't have that, and then they click on it, and then why would they contact you if they don't know what you do? Like if we had an inquiry come in on Monday, I sent it to my whole team to see if anyone could figure out what they did. None of us could. Like I couldn't even. So when I get an inquiry, I look at their website before I look at what they do. Like that's my like first step of an inquiry. And so if I can't tell right away, your couples definitely cannot tell, because if I'm over here like making sure that we also don't overwhelm them with too many galleries. Again, so many times I see wedding pros and they have 50 galleries. Well, it's not really selling for you. 50 galleries don't actually sell anything. It just causes, honestly, decision fatigue and overwhelm. I want you to focus on the best of the best. I don't want them to scroll through galleries. I want them to have 6 awesome galleries, 10, 15 photos each, and then contact you. Because the last thing I need them to do is to spend 5 hours looking at some pretty galleries, forgetting they ever looked at you and clicking out. I also want you to list your pricing and packages. I know this can be controversial, but I'm telling you, based on every type of data that we are seeing right now, price transparency is just the name of the game. Even if it's a range, you have to be price transparent. Even my clients, I have photographers who charge 20, 25, 30,000 for a weekend. It's on their website, because even their clients spending that much money has a budget. Like they still have a monetary value in their head, even if it's 50K. So we got to make sure we're really thinking about that for them. And then of course, your contact page, make it easy to get a hold of you. And this is one where I know sounds like really basic, but I see so many contact pages on a daily basis that A, the button doesn't work. Or B, there's way too many questions. If you need 15, 30 questions to get on a call with you, I want you to rethink your processes, because no one's going to really want to fill that out, right? So if our goal is to get them on a call to book them, what is the least path of least resistance that we can humanly do to get them on that call? So I want you to really think about how can we just get in there really fast. And then, of course, use our blog to create educational resources. And you might be thinking, how can I sell with the blog? Well, if you saw my Instagram story, we just had a client book a $15,000 wedding on a single blog post. That was her sales funnel: blog, call, book. How did it work? We warmed her up. The blog gave her and answered the question she wanted to know about getting married at a venue. It was a new venue opening up in the area. It answered all the questions she wanted. She went, that's an expert, love her style. She booked her on the call. Now, I'm not saying that happens every single time, but imagine if you could just even warm them up 10% more before they get on you, because you've provided those valuable resources. So not only is it, great for SEO and tells Google that you're fresh, it's also really allowing you to, like I said, become that expert that's guiding them through it. They want to find vendors that they can trust. And by you answering those questions, whether it's real weddings and talking about what you did for them, showing off events that you go to and how you're a member of your community, showing off educational resources every single month on guides and vendors and things like that. That is what's going to be really great. Another thing is to think about what are common questions that I get in the sales process that I can answer in a blog post. And the reason for that is one, they might read it and then we answered that question and feels really good. Or two, it's something you can do throughout the sales journey. So for example, for a lot of our clients, we have an inquiry email sequence. So we're always top of mind. So when they inquire, I send an email every few days automated that has info about that vendor. And it includes blog posts answering those top questions. So these can be utilized a lot later as well. And it also allows you to see bits and pieces of that client experience and by showing off yourself. I have a lot of blog topics inside of the workbook as well, so lots of that too. So next is when we get into the inquiry phase. They're actually reaching out. So Gen Z doesn't really want super stuffy old school sales tactics. They want to feel like you're providing custom. They want someone that is going to be perceived as authentic and transparent. You're going to notice I'm using a lot of the same words and over again. It's for a reason. I want to like really drive this piece home of what we're seeing our couples are needing. They also seek vendors who align with their values and provide that genuine experience. So the contact page, I know we mentioned this really quick. One other thing is make sure you have your email listed and have it go to some kind of thank you page that tells them what they're going to do next. A lot of times people, when they don't have anything that's like, I received your message, you will be hearing from me. It might sound silly, but I see online plenty of times, they're like, I don't know if my inquiry went through. But instead of re-hitting it, they just ignore it. So it's like, let's just kind of keep them on. And we need to be fast. So this is from a Reddit of luxury couples. And it says, they asked, how did you pick your planner? These two responses were literally time. They picked their planner based off time. I interviewed with 4, and the planner I went with literally was more responsive, and prompt than the other 3 combined. All they did was answer them quickly, and they got a sale. I've never gone more than 24 hours from a response to an email, weekly check-ins. Of course, as a planner, I'm not saying you have to do all that, but here's what's interesting. The price point was steep, but her approach from the jump was all business on point. We felt it was worth the money. So they went with the most expensive option because they were the fastest. That's pretty great. I reached out to 7, only interviewed 3 that got back to me within 72 hours. Again, only 3 people got back to them within 72 hours. 2 responded within 6 or 7 days, which meant they were already off the list. 2 never got back to them. So I feel like whenever I like harp on the contact form, I know whenever I harp on this contact form, I literally pull out something from Reddit of the week because this happens every week. And I'm like, well, this week online, think about if you were that vendor who just was too late. And also 2 people never replied. Like these, wow, right? $10,000 flat fee. So they booked someone with a $10,000 flat fee because they were fast. So again, 56% of luxury couples said it's very important to reply to emails within 24 hours, which is from Think Splendid. If you haven't know about Think Splendid, they have yearly stats and data points that are like mind-blowing, and it's for like all ranges. So like I mentioned, this is that post inquiry nurture sequence. Now, of course, this is customized. Every vendor is different, but just to give you a general idea, this is all automated too. So I want you to know that nothing I'm telling you to do is like, you have to manually email this. Like you can automate this in a CRM system or Flowdesk or something. But this is what this does is it keeps you top of mind. And the reason I started loving these was when I got married, I got into one. So when I got married, I was reaching out to photographers and I got put in a sequence. And as a marketer, I went, ooh, I'm in a sequence. Like I knew exactly what they were doing. I booked that photographer, I'm not kidding, because of the value she gave in those 5 emails. She answered every question I had ever had about photography as a marketer, like former planner. And she made me feel, even though I knew it was mass written, I felt like I understood her why. Like she talked about her why, and I booked her for that. So it really can work. So it can be just the first one. Again, thanks for reaching out. Can't wait to hear from you. Here's a little bit about us. Number two, a glimpse into some of your most recent sessions. This is where you can show off some work, right? This is where you can brag. You did a really cool wedding. Cool, show it off. Number three, how to pick the right vendors. If you have some thoughts as a vendor on how to pick other vendors, maybe you should talk about it, right? And then a final email thanking them for coming along on the ride. Of course, depending on how you work, maybe you'll have the sales call link in there, right? Or you'll reach out to them one-on-one, or you accept text messaging. But the whole point is literally just to be top of mind and to make them feel really comfortable. And when it comes to social media, when we're inquiry phase, I always suggest to have some like pre-written prompts outlined. I get a lot of comments who are like, people are always in my DMs, but like I get anxiety about that. And I keep telling them, man, those are hot. Like you got to get those. Like, again, that 24-hour response time is like even faster in the DMs. So what we do for them is I just rate them like 15 pre-written prompts. And I'm like, whenever you don't know what to say, send them one of these. And it just guides them to your website or to book a call, right? You can save them in your phone. You can save them on like in Instagram. But for those who might feel, or maybe their boundaries are really strict around social media, which I super duper respect, this can be a great way. And then, like I said, make it easy to book you, make it streamlined. Everything is automated. They sign, they get the proposal. A trend that we're seeing a lot is web pages proposals. So instead of giving a PDF, which sometimes don't load very well, you have to like pinch your finger to zoom in. We're seeing the proposals actually being built out on their website, which is pretty cool. So it's like an individual page. We design it for the client. They edit it for each one. Yes, does it take an extra 5 minutes? 110%. But for a lot of our clients, that extra 5 minutes is like super worth it if they get a higher end booking. And then, of course, make easy to understand packages. This goes into sales so much more than I think a lot of our clients realize. Is if your packages are confusing, how can you sell them / how can I buy it? If you have like, and I get as a former planner, like we need to be really detailed, but I want you to be thinking about the value and not just like you get 8 hours of photography, 12-page album. Like that's cool, but like everybody does that. Everybody offers 6 hours and 12-page album. What are you giving them in that experience that they're just simply not going to get? Because they're just going to look. For example, we had one client that we did a call with last week. She had two packages. One was 5,000, one was 20,000. She couldn't figure out why the $20,000 package wasn't selling. And it was like, well, because your bullet points are the exact same for each package. Obviously, I'm going to book the $5,000 package. I was like, you're not selling the value in either one of them. Like, you're just telling me that this one gives you one extra day or extra design. Like, think about that when you're selling your packages, because that's going to make it a lot easier when they're in that price comparison phase. Because a lot of times they'll reach out, they'll get a few proposals, and then they'll decide based off of that. So make sure our proposals are really selling that value and a lot less like, this is the exact number of hours you get, because that is what everybody's going to provide. The next wave of couples describe their style as fun. Yeah, literally just fun. Like that's all they want is fun. So connect with your couples through video and photos that shows how fun interacting with you and your products and services is. So this is going through the planning phase. So we've gone through the sales phase and you might be thinking, Adriana, I sold them. I don't need to do anything else. I'm done. I disagree, because there are so many ways that you can A, use the wedding in your marketing to then again complete that circle and make that touch point, or B, get you more referrals. And if I don't think I know any wedding vendor that's like, I don't want any more referrals. I just want to keep trucking on Google. Like, no, we want referrals. So how are we going to go ahead and use all of this to hopefully make that circle a little bit more fun. Because as they're telling us, they just want fun. I love that when it was just the not. They just want fun. Like, okay. So first, I want you to consider the questionnaires you're using. So we have them booked. They're really happy, but I want you to think about how can we use those questionnaires later on in our marketing? This is like such a prime place to get all the stuff you need when you have to write the blog and you have to do the social media posts about it later. Because a lot of times, people are like, well, I don't remember anything from that wedding. I had 6 that weekend. Cool, but your questionnaire should have like stuff. So we want to make sure that it's an easy process so that they're happy to work with us, but also getting that market research. Because I see a lot of people who still don't use questionnaires. They just ask like one email at a time, all of these things. And I'm like, ooh, for the client, that's going to get really exhausting. So they're not going to be very excited about telling their friends. They're going to be like, yeah, like my venue's cool, but I've gotten like 18 emails this week just picking out linens when it should just be like a nice, simple process because their friends are thinking about that. They're listening in on that. And that market research, as I know Heidi loves, is valuable. Like this is the time where you can ask questions that maybe you've just been wanting to ask, but can't get out of them. Like one of them, why did they pick you? Like, wouldn't you want to know why they chose you so you can A, brag about it later, but B, get a better understanding of what made you stand out from the competition? Or even things of like why they picked their venue, what the most important part of their wedding day is. To me, knowing what my client values in the wedding is one of the most important things that I can find because that is going to tell me so much about how to market to them is what they're valuing on their day. And of course, showcasing them as we plan. I know it can be like really overwhelming when we're in planning season. Like it's really easy to say all this now in the off season. Like it's really easy to be like, yeah, like let's just post some stuff. But what we need to remember is that our couples, like I mentioned earlier, want to find people that they trust. So during the planning phases with your couples, create that content to then go back to phase 1 of stuff that they trust. So even if it's something as simple as like we have a stationery client and literally wax seals. People are obsessed with watching her make wax seal videos. Like it seems so simple to us, or like you're making a layout and all seated. It might seem really just simple to us, but to our clients, that's something that's just so outside of their like, they don't know what that is. They're seeing you make a timeline in Timeline Genius and they're thinking, how did they do that? Well, because they hired you as the expert. So this is why, I want you to get all of this nice, fun stuff now so that when you're reusing it to market later and to get those sales, you really have it. It also, again, expands your audience in front of their audience. Couples love when we talk about them. They love when they share about them. I mean, who doesn't? Who doesn't want to be shouted out? Like, it is such like just an emotional, like, yay, they care about me. That is such a great feeling. So why not just give them that feeling, become top of mind again, and then hopefully they reshare in their front of their audience. If you're going on a venue, take video of the venue, have it constantly in your back of your mind for all your couples who want to get married at that venue. If you're doing little things, make sure you're setting up video. I mean, one of my favorite things is you can set up your phone if you have like an iPhone and do time lapse and just record yourself working on the computer. Like that, it can be that simple, but that is just what's showing them again, you and your expertise at the same time. In surprise and delayed, I'm a really big fan of like, again, what can I have that they take a picture of that's an Instagrammable moment to tag me in so that all their friends see, so that more people like me. So even if it's just like little things throughout the planning process, a card, something that's just going to make them, again, want to talk about you to someone they know, especially during engagement season, in my opinion, is such just an easy win that we can do. So back to that circle, because a lot of times I get asked like, how does a wedding day? Because it really truly is a circle of getting all of that content. And of course, the wedding day, prime content. We all know this by now. We all know that people hire content creators for a reason, and I do not think that is going anywhere. I think content creators are here to stay for a really long time because people want to see videos of themselves. So just know that you have now complete permission to get your phone out, not in the middle of ceremony when they're talking, but like you have permission to get your phone out and get some B-roll. When I, a few years ago, when I mentioned this, I had so many people saying, no one wants me to video them. And it's like, oh, but they do. So unless they're private, respect their wishes. But most clients are going to be like, yeah, take a video of me, share it later. And the thing is, you don't have to do it now. You can, again, share it later to build that circle back. And then, of course, the reviews, because we all know reviews are an essential part of us actually getting more clients. And this is one of the most important things when we're dealing with younger generations, so millennials, Gen Z. And it's honestly just a consumer shopping habit in general, social proof. If you are on TikTok for 10 minutes, influencers are unpopular for a reason. Companies spend money on that. Like my husband at Snyder's spends way too much money for a reason, because it works. That social proof gets pretzels sold. So you better bet social proof gets weddings sold. 86% of Gen Z couples will read a review before deciding to purchase. So they're that important to it. And the biggest thing, and again, it might sound silly, but asking for reviews. Because you have to ask. When I got married, I had 14 vendors, 4 asked for reviews. On Reddit, weekly. Am I supposed to leave a review or not? They shouldn't be asking. They should not be on Reddit or Facebook saying, do I leave a review or not? Like it should be second nature and your thing to ask them for review. So that's why I have to bring this up, is because I see it all the time. Or what we do is we ask once and we never follow up. And people are busy. We have to follow up. Like that's just the world we live in. We really need to follow up with them. Or 2, we make it too difficult. We give them 100 websites. We're like, hey, I need you to review me on all these. Or we don't give them prompts. So one of the biggest things with reviews is if you ask anyone to open up a blank document and talk, like no one's going to do it. Like you ever open up Instagram and not know what to say? It's kind of like that, but for reviews. So if we are just being like, I loved working with you, could you leave me a review? I don't know what to say about you. Like, no offense, but like I can barely remember. My day was a blur. Give them prompts. So in the workbook, I'm going to give you some of the prompts that we like give our clients, because this is part of our marketing. Is I ask, how do you ask for reviews? Is one of our marketing questions, because I'm like, I want to know if we got to like build this up a little bit for them. So I'll give you a list, but just know that it's okay to ask them a few prompts. Like, most important, biggest memory of working together, or what you liked most about working with us. That just makes it easier, because a lot of times clients will say, well, they just don't give good reviews. Like my reviews just aren't good. Because, it's like they were cool, 10 out of 10 stars. Like in order to get those, you have to like prompt them a little bit, and then they'll give us a really good review. And of course, sharing their wedding. I won't dive too deep into blogging, even though, I love it. But it's the same idea. We want to complete that circle. We want to create something that they can share to get in front of an audience. And it also creates that, feeling of trust for their friends. Like, oh, they shared their wedding. They'll share my wedding, that whole thing. I'm a big component of blogging every single wedding. I know plenty of people do not agree with me. I'm a huge component that it is an absolute honor to be chosen as a vendor. Like, holy cow, they chose me. So for me, I say blog all of them. If it is not your dream style, you focus on the portraits. That's simple. Like, so that's just personal, but I really know that when we can complete that circle, because couples will also post online when no one shares their wedding. They will call you out directly. The vendor this morning got called out in a Facebook group, and it's a vendor I know. And they did not share their wedding, and the couple feels it's because of their size. And they posted that person's name of their business in a group of 14,000 people. So how do we avoid that? We share everything. So I saw that this morning and went, because I know that person didn't mean to. I know that vendor did not mean to not share their wedding. I know it's 100% a time crunch, but also because blogs can make your marketing easier. Every blog can be broken down into so many pieces of bite-sized content that if you don't know what to write on Instagram, well, you just talk about your blog. And it just makes it 10 times easier. And again, we complete the beautiful circle that is marketing. So, like I said, we have the workbook. I'm here for questions as well because I see there's stuff in the chat. I'm assuming there might be some questions. But in summary, I want you to go through the workbook and I want you to think of what are two things that I can do this off season. And the reason I'm saying two is that there's no reason to do everything in the kitchen sink to move your business forward. It's overwhelming. Let's think about what are two things that you are currently missing that you can do to help get just one more sale. Because so many of these things, if you start doing, can get you just one more sale. And I don't know about you, but like that's a big deal. You like, even if we just get one more sale from doing two little steps of this, that is just going to increase, especially in this kind of interesting 2024 booking weirdness season that we're in right now. Thank you guys so much. I'm ready for questions. I'll stop sharing my screen.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I'll jump
good.
in with a
Thanks.
question. Most of the people watching right now, or who are going to watch the replay later on here at the I Do Society, are interested in advertising in some capacity. And
Yeah.
so much of what you shared just encompasses and relates to advertising in so many different ways. And one thing that really stood out to me was your knowledge and your involvement in chats and rooms where people are talking and things like that. So linking those two things together, because advertising is very top of the funnel. The whole goal of advertising is to get you more exposure and get as many leads as possible, but also to get your name out there. And I would love to know your thoughts on like how long the couple's journey is before they like learn about a business to where they like book an appointment. Because I think a lot of folks approach advertising as like, oh, advertising is amazing. I'm going to have people click on my ads. They're going to book appointments right away, which does happen. And we want that to happen, but it's not really the real experience. And sometimes it has many touch points. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned that because ads, and one of the reasons why they work so well on social media is they connect in terms of that like brand awareness. It's really getting in front of it. So we see kind of I would say I see two boats or buckets of couples. There are the ones that creep for a really long time who just naturally are, graduating post-pandemic. They don't have the cash for a wedding right now. So they're just waiting. So those are the people that you need even more touch points. Those are the people that you're going to need like 10, 15 touch points before they reach out, which is why, creating all those touch points is great. But typically we see in the buying process for each vendor, it's a little bit different. But for example, most of our planners, we're going to see them from their initial touch point to booking within like a month or so. Because especially this time of year, they're looking for planners and venues. When we start shifting into like April, May, they're looking for photographers. When we go into the summer, they're looking more for stationary, secondary items, things like that. So it kind of depends on the vendor and their buying process. But it definitely, so that's usually what I recommend to couples, to vendors is understand your couple's buying process with you. Where are you at in the line of succession? Because that will then determine from like engagement season to when your inquiries spike up. Because it's not going to be the same for everybody.
Do you see variation for that in different parts of the country? Obviously, like there's more weddings happening in the summer in the Northeast versus the South.
Yeah, we definitely see, and we see it. We work with a lot of clients in Canada and a lot in Italy. So it is a little regional specific, even definitely in Canada, it's a little different. But it can be regional because definitely, venues and planners and photographers are always kind of those first, like immediate because they determine the date. The ones where we start to see a little fluctuation are gonna be the ones that aren't needed for a date. So like your florist or your hair and makeup. So definitely for different regions. It also, we notice big cities. I would say regions, it's like metropolitan versus suburbs, because those in big cities will have a lot more options, but they'll book out faster. So if you're in New York City, there's like a billion of you. But if you're in like small time Nebraska, like there's just not quite as many of you. So the buying structure is a little bit different because your couples know that. Like they know you're not going to be booked out as fast. It's just the truth. Like my couples that like when you see online in these groups, they call it like HCOL, high cost of living and low cost of living is how it's defined in these Facebook groups mostly and on Reddit. That's how they define their wedding when they talk budget, is they talk high cost of living, low cost of living. So the high cost of living people know that they have more options. The low cost of living are like, they don't have as many options, but they're not going to book out as fast. So I'm not as in a rush. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but I really love thinking about like data like that.
No, I love it. Awesome. I think we got another question in the chat too.
Yes. Contacting the couple after the initial inquiry. Say if they reach out via our website, with Gen Zers constantly on their phone and loving text. Do studies show we should reply back via an email? Oh, I love this one. Do studies show we should reply back both via email and text them our info, or stick strictly with old school thinking they respond via the method they originally contacted you with? So I'm going to answer these in two parts. They love texting, include it as an option. What I thought about including that as one of the stats is like how much more likely they're going to text you, but my recommendation is on your contact form or in your initial email, ask how they want to be contacted. Like say, do you want me to text you or call you? And that way they'll just tell you what they want, because plenty of people might love text, but not for like business or weddings. So ask them, just have it be like a checkbox, which one you want, and that's how I'll contact you. But yeah, texting is going to be a pretty hot one. What about offering and sending them a quick one question questionnaire in your second email about, yeah, which method of contact they prefer? If your contact form only has a few questions like it should, adding just a checkbox is fine. If you need a few more details and your contact form is just naturally a little bit longer because of the type of vendor, then I would maybe do that in that first email, be like, hey, we want to make sure, how do you want us to contact you next?
I
Yeah.
want to like
Also,
second the whole texting thing. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
no, go first. I have another thought, but go ahead.
Well, I want to second the texting thing because we've been testing this out a ton and learning that like people want to text, like younger millennials and Gen Z. It's like they want to text, but they don't want long text messages. We actually have a venue that we work with who's a Disney property, and they have been texting this like email length with pricing and all this. And what's fascinating is it's because it's a Disney property, like it works because of the product. They're the only swan and dolphin in the world. So people will still respond because they want to get married to the swan and dolphin. But like what we did was we changed the text message to ask, hey, what's the best way to get your pricing and packages? Is it via text or email? Send us the answer to that. And that simple change of shortening that first interaction on the text message changed everything for them in terms of the quality, the quantity of leads, and it is so powerful. So I just want to like reinforce texting is the new email.
Yeah, and I have two thoughts. You brought up two thoughts for that. One is experiment with video, especially if you're high touch. So if you're a vendor that's high touch, so you don't want to take 100 weddings, like you only want to take 15 and charge more, video can be amazing. We have clients who record like literally a 3-minute loom or 4-minute loom, or like, just a quick little, hey, so like that can just be the game changer is video, because it's not just texting, it's video. Like they want to see your face. So that's an option. And then I know ManyChat has been around forever, but if you ever see the people who are like, type something in the comments and we'll send you a DM, like that's ManyChat. And I know that can do really well for conversion. I don't know if you use it for like ads and it is like an extra technology, but for anyone who's like wanting to test it out, we've been testing it with clients and I've seen some pretty cool results.
So wait, just to recap that, like your suggestion is send them a text message with a little video in the text message so they can see your face.
It could be a text or email.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think
Just
like
because it's like that touch.
yeah, it's high touch. If it's like a 2 or 3 minute video and it's on their phone and it's like, hey, here's answers to like all the questions you're probably going to ask. Like,
Yeah.
and they see you talking and they get to know, like, and trust you from that little video. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And, doesn't take too long. Just takes a few minutes.
You send the same video to people again. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You could totally like batch out, like, no, 100%. Like you could totally record a few for each package and just have that go out too. Yeah. You don't have to do it like live every time, but just that little touch point. I think I see it a lot in like the coaching industry. Like I see it in a lot of other industries. And I think it could do so well in the wedding industry too.
I know Carrie, who we had in our last session here, was talking about for her venue, she does a video just like briefly going over the contract for their venue and like, okay, in layman's terms, let me explain why this is here, what this is. It's like a couple of minute video and it gets people to sign the contract faster.
That's so smart because when people see a contract, it's like deer in the headlights. It's like,
Like, I don't know what any of this is.
yeah, I like that. Let me
Does
see.
anybody else have any questions about these touch points?
I know
About
Heather says I included text when my website contact form is an option, but I still ask for the phone number. If I don't hear back in 24 hours, I use whatever other method I have. It's way too much. How long in between touches do you recommend if you are not hearing back? So, I mean, as Heidi, I know Heidi, you talk a lot about ghosting because this is like kind of, a thing. But, and Heidi, I'd be curious to hear what you have to say since I know you talk a lot about ghosting too, but I don't, I would say like 4 or 5 replies. I'm kind of like, you guys have ever heard Alan Berg speak? He's like, just keep going. Like, I'm kind of in like, you don't want to like annoy them, but like, yeah, I'm curious how what you think. Are you kind of on the same boat of just do a few?
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way about that. And I would do it at least 24 hours
Yeah,
between. I know you just asked that. Or even like a couple of days in between if you haven't heard back. That can be enough to get people to be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, yes, I meant to get back to you." And you'd be surprised how much that happens. And then, you can have something as part of that sequence that's like, hey, haven't heard back from you. So we're going to stop emailing you. But if you decide you want to move forward, here's how to do that. And then you can move on.
I love that.
Then
Because I
let
think
like, balls in their court.
yeah, and I think it's just, people are busy, inboxes get full. So I do
Yep.
think, a few follow-ups is, and yeah, I would say a day at least in between, just because there's a good chance they just haven't even seen the other one yet.
All right, Adrian, I want to pick your brain on something
I'm
that we're
ready.
learning. So in our work with advertising, many times we'll create a landing page that has an offer. The point of that offer is to get someone to know the business, to like them, and also see this offer and convert faster because like, oh, this is interesting. I'm interested in that. We've actually been seeing that sometimes landing pages without an offer are converting better. And you mentioned earlier in the beginning that like Gen Z and younger millennials aren't super interested in old sales tactics. And I wouldn't say offers are old sales tactics, but I think we're experiencing a shift in people's perception of like what they're being presented with. And I'd love to get your thoughts on like, are offers something that you recommend? Do you not recommend them?
Yeah, this is so funny you mentioned it because I was talking to a friend about this like a week or so ago, was like, are freebies still working? Because they do, because I see it as kind of both things. One, people are less likely to give your email unless they get something. Like that's just kind of like a thing. But two, consumers know what it means when they give an email address now. I think, as you know, a few years ago, you gave an email address and you got thrown into a sequence, you didn't realize it. I definitely think we're at the stage where, especially younger consumers, they totally know what's happening. Like they know what's about to come. So I think it's fascinating that you said that some don't. I think it would we do a lot of like freebies and stuff for clients, and we're still seeing they're working pretty well. But we've noticed that we have to sometimes do video for it. Like we almost need it to be like something a little bit different that they haven't seen before. So for one client, she recorded like a mini audio DIY plan your wedding podcast. So, not like a ton of work. It's on Hello Audio. I think it's free for her to have, or a video or a spreadsheet. Something that is like just a tiny bit different is what we've noticed can help, because we have also seen that fatigue of like, I don't want to sign up for one more thing. Like I can't right now. So I think that's interesting in terms of like some it's working better. I think that's why it's great testing though, because it might just truly be different audiences or like anti.
Yeah, they might. Yeah, and like more context for this is actually one thing that has worked for years and years and years really well is like money off or up to a certain amount of dollars off, because everyone loves money and everyone loves saving money. But I think that there's this turning point where people are feeling like, oh, maybe that's actually too good to be true. Like they're feeling like, oh, up to $1,000 off is like, wow, but that's probably too good to be true. This might be spam. And I don't know that for a fact because I haven't proved that yet. But it's almost like what we're seeing when we test the landing page with that offer versus the landing page without it, that in some cases, the landing page without it, this exact same landing page, just no $1,000 off offer converts better. And so I'm wondering like if that psychology might be something that you think could be happening too, in terms of what you're seeing.
I definitely think that too good to be true 100%, because there's a lot of skepticism in the groups that I'm in. A lot of, like I said, just no trust. Like we're really like people don't trust vendors after the pandemic.
I
Like
think
I
people don't
hate,
trust businesses. I think we're in like an
yes.
extremely just like low trust environment across the board.
Yeah, like they just don't trust anything. They don't trust anybody. So I think it could be that that is no way that's real. Like they can't be offering that. That's not
What's
real.
crazy is
So
it is
yeah,
real. Like it totally
I
is.
know.
Like that underlying lack of trust is this is such a great conversation for just talking about that, because it's cutting off the reality of like, hey, this business is ready to do business with you.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah, I
crazy.
think it does. It is just rooted in that sense of trust when it comes to consumerism in general is just like people are nervous about.
I would be curious, Mark, if you have any data or if you test this, if it works better on a retargeted audience where maybe there's a little more trust,
Great
Ooh,
idea.
I like
and
that.
then you could probably prove out the trust angle.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Okay, follow-up question then. What do you guys think of like ways to create trust from someone who clicks on an ad and doesn't know anything about the business, but is interested because it's relevant to them? What experiences or things do you think they need to see and know before they're willing to give their information over to them?
I have a few thoughts.
Yeah, go
Heidi,
for it.
uh, hate to say a video or
Okay.
social proof. I
Yeah.
would say video or social proof. Um, and sometimes with social proof, I think it's then showing the couple or showing the event. Because again, I don't want them to think the social proof is made up. I want it to be like, no, this is real social proof.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think video could be really useful because you can connect more with a person and see that they are an actual person, especially if it's not like an overly polished video, kind of just like a
Yeah.
little Loom video and like the thumbnail, you're like, hey, and you're able to just speak a little bit about the offer. That might work.
I like that. And not the overly polished part is so true. Like TikTok has changed the world. Like
Yes.
Instagram is
Polished is
to me,
out.
It
No
is.
yeah.
one wants
Like
polished.
I actually heard a speaker recently talk about how like Instagram is too pretty now. Like people don't believe it because they know that it's not real. And
Yeah.
TikTok is becoming this place where people do behind the scenes videos and all this cool stuff where it's like you build that know, like, and trust by just being authentic and more gritty with people. And that is super powerful. So like the non-polished component of this is really important.
Actually, yeah, I was reading when Instagram comes out with like their yearly stats from the year before. Gen Z prefer Instagram stories over the feed because they see the feed as inauthentic.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Like,
Which is, I'm like, I love a good story, but it kind of reinforces that again, they don't want polished. They want like
Yeah.
TikTok where it's just you doing you
yeah,
because the feed is polished and they might not think that. And it's also all the ads, I'm not against ads, but it's also just like that idea of just like if I'm in the stories, like the ads are video and it feels more connected, that kind of like
yeah.
feeling of it.
There's so much advertising done wrong by big brands and small businesses alike, and it burns people out. And there's a recipe to do it really well. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, like even the big brands get it wrong. And so people are like, well, yeah. Do you hear of anyone in those groups that you're a part of, like talking about TikTok as part of their discovery journey?
Oh yeah. Wed Talk is So it's Wed Talk on there. It's called Wed Talk, and it's honestly kind of like unhinged because it's so authentic. Like people share like everything. And what I find interesting about TikTok, so I have a separate phone for a lot of my creeping because it's like my algorithm would not be cats, and I want my personal TikTok to only be cat videos and not wedding videos. So I have like a separate phone that's like for when I wed talk, and my husband knows when I'm on the Wed Talk phone because he's like, you're on weddings. But they use it as a search engine to find vendors.
Mm.
So they're actively using it like Google, which is really, really, really interesting. And a lot of planners are using it really well. I would say planners are doing the best that I've seen in terms of like, there's a few other types of vendors, but planners I think are the most dominant we're seeing on Wed Talk right now because they can just throw off tips. Like one of the most popular Wed Talkers is her and her car, and that's it. Like no
Amazing.
makeup, her and her car, giving a 30-second tip. So
And
it's like so
yeah,
unpolished, it's great.
like
But
a complete opposite of the Instagram feed.
yeah.
And like I think that in the industry, so many folks are still so focused on Instagram. And I know it is a good tool for a lot of reasons, but like the world is changing and the wedding industry is not keeping up. Like I can't tell you how many people we talk about TikTok ads with and like, nope, no more social media. And I'm like, I know you
Oh,
feel that way. However,
yeah.
if you want your business to continue into the future, like this is the place that people are going.
Yeah, and I think it's something where it's not just like I think a lot of people who when they ask me about it are like, it's just the kids. And it's not, it's society. Like our parents are shopping like this too. You know how many things my mom has bought off of like in a Facebook ad, a TikTok ad, they're literally like, yeah, they include search metrics for that reason.
Yeah.
So it is something where it's like it's not an age range. It is just simply a generation, it's just a society shift.
It's middle-aged white men with gray hair and band-aids on their face.
I mean, it's everywhere. And it is, and I think it is because we're in that untrusting environment, it feels so real that it's easier to trust it when there's no filters or no perfection. Like it's easier to, it's easy to trust this girl and her car with no makeup running to a wedding, telling you a tip than it is to like, go to
Yeah.
her feed and then see a pretty picture.
That common thread that you've discussed throughout this conversation of like trust and how to establish that and the examples in this one of the TikTok really for me is like a light bulb takeaway moment of like, is everything that we're doing something that builds trust and authenticity? Because they're burnt out, they don't want long emails, they don't want to talk on the phone, right? Like I ain't picking up the phone anymore, no one's picking up the phone anymore. So I think just, as a quick wrap up from my perspective, that is a really great takeaway and thank you.
Yeah, no, I definitely, it's like the name of the game right now. So I'm glad that we went full circle with it because I think it really is such a connection with converting leads is just simply being ourselves, which I think is exciting. Like I think it's so cool that as a vendor, like you can just be you. And
Yeah.
I think that that's something that, as you said, the industry is shifting. And as an industry, we felt like we couldn't because, like, there were TV shows that made it look awful. So it's like, but now it's like, no, like, you can just be you and have fun. And, like, that's what the couples want. So I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, this is so exciting. Like, I wish when I was a vendor, I could have just been me in my car, like, with a couple, like, that was not something I could have done back then. Like, so I
People
am
will
just
thought you
like,
were
man, if
crazy.
I could have been myself back then, I would have just
Yeah.
flourished.
People totally would have thought you were crazy. They're like, who is this lady in her car making videos? Like,
I
yeah.
know they would be like, what is wrong? I remember like when I owned my bridal shop, like Instagram video, like this was in 2013. So Instagram like was still sepia toned half the time. And we started doing videos as soon as they released it. And I remember the hours we would spend to make the perfect Instagram video, we'd be like,
Yeah.
oh my God, redo it. And nowadays it's like, nah, just one take. That's it.
Mhm.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it's so much easier and it's so much easier to infuse it into every point of the process, like you said. Like you can drop a link to a Loom video that's just like a quick walkthrough, whether you're just talking or you're sharing your screen and explaining something. It's such a more candid and easier way to communicate. And it does really build that trust and that connection.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much, Adriana. This has been wonderful. Everybody, make sure to download Adriana's workbook. I'll be sure that we link to that with the recording, because if there's one thing I know this girl does, it's create insanely valuable workbooks that are like, oh my God. Like I have this open on my laptop right now. We have like 18 pages of gold in here. So
Yeah, when I do workbooks, I'm like, you're getting homework, you're getting prompts, like
you get
we're doing
everything. You get
it.
all sorts of ideas you can take and run with. So you've
Yeah, no,
got
I
a
love it.
ton
I
to
love
run
making
with
them.
there. Well, thank you so much. And Adriana, if anyone has any questions for you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, so we're over at Ava and the Bee. You can shoot me a DM because I am in my DMs, or you can just send us an email over at accounts@avaandthebee.com or in the DMs, and we'd love to help you guys out, or if you have any questions on stuff we covered today.
Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I will let all of you get on with the rest of your day, and we'll get this recording up for you soon. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.